Hi, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Plymouth. I am your host and your town manager, Derek Brindisi. This episode, we have a new guest with us today. His name is Manny Leite. Manny, yes. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So now that I've introduced your name, I want folks to know who you are. So you're the new library director.
Yes.
Started in February. Does that sound right?
A couple of months, yeah.
So I've been here a few months.
March, April, yeah.
So this is a good opportunity, like I was saying before the show started. I try to have these shows twice a month to try to provide good information back to the community. You know, as you know, residents receive information on all different types of platforms, and this is just one of the platforms that we've been doing for 3 years now. So new library director, been with us for a few months now. Yeah. Tell us where you came from, your background around library sciences and things of that nature.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate that. I do want to thank the community that has welcomed me with open arms. So I felt welcomed and appreciated right off the bat. I do have quite a long and large history when it comes to public libraries, starting back in 1995. Started out over in Dartmouth.
Okay.
And working down there as a page. So I was shelving books. That was my job at the time, and became fascinated with libraries. Cut to a few years later, I did go to library school, and they do have schools that specialize in libraries. Back in the day, the two big ones around here were Simmons up in Boston, and the University of Rhode Island down in Kingston. I did go to URI and received my master's degree back in 1999.
Okay.
I do remember it vividly because during the time when I started there, the internet was still new. So like one of the classes I started with was Introduction to the Internet, which was quite interesting. We had to make our own website, and
sure.
Mine was a Boston Bruins site that was really, really subpar to say the least, but it was great. But yeah, I received my master's in library science, and I worked my way through various public libraries in Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. Actually got to become the assistant director of the Tiverton Library Services, which was really cool because it was the library that my mother would take me to when I was younger.
Really?
So, going there, because I grew up in Tiverton, and the library was built in 1896 at that time. And now here I am employed there. And so that was a lot of fun. And it got to the point there where the director at the time was really pushing me to become a library director. She said that you have the qualities and leadership to, make a difference with libraries. And at that point I was a little, maybe I need more seasoning,
Sure.
But she felt like I was ready. So I wouldn't call it like a push. It was more of a shove. She's like, you need to get out there and do that. So, and I give her all the credit, and I became director in East Bridgewater back in the early 2000s. And I learned a lot from East Bridgewater, made a lot of mistakes at the time, but I learned from them. And I really started to grow as a library director and get to know my colleagues around the area. Cut to 8 years later, I received a phone call from a good friend of mine who was leaving the Boyden Library in Foxborough, and it was a brand new library. He says, I'm retiring, but I think you'd be excellent over here. This is another step for you to really grow and flourish as a director. So I threw my hat in the ring, and sure enough, I became director. And now I was dealing with it was a brand new challenge because I'm dealing with a new building.
Right.
And you think a new building, everything's going to go correctly. Well, I learned building maintenance 101, cut my teeth there.
I bet.
The HVAC system was it was interesting, but I learned and grew. A few years after that, about 7.5 years I was there, my wife and I made a decision that we wanted to go a different part of the country, and she's a teacher, a library director, and we moved to Tennessee, East Tennessee, to be exact, Blount County, right outside of Knoxville. And, that was the best experience I've ever had because I got to go, and I've told other libraries directors this, another part of the country where you're
Absolutely.
learning, and it's a different, there's, different beliefs, there's different policies there that I'm accustomed up here in New England, and there it's a whole different ballgame.
Sure.
And I grew so much as a library director because I was facing obstacles that I never had to face up here. And my personality, I'm going to get through it. I'm not going to, put my head in the sand. I really want to work through this. And I did, and I really am grateful for that opportunity in Tennessee. Years later, my wife received a wonderful job opportunity up in Massachusetts, and I'm very supportive of my wife. So I said, absolutely, let's do that. It was just my wife and I down there, so our family was up here, and we have moved back. And I'm just so happy and grateful to be in Plymouth. My brother used to live in Plymouth for 20 plus years, so I'm very familiar with the town. I had some good friends that grew up here, went to South Plymouth.
Yep.
And just excited to be here. And my experience, what I'm going to bring to the library and to the community, I really would like to see it grow.
Well, that is a really good. I'm happy you went through your history of the work that you've done. So you worked in multiple communities. You worked in multiple states, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, now Tennessee. And that's really important, especially when you take a leadership role here in Plymouth. And so oftentimes, a lot of the folks who are born and raised in this town, they really appreciate the homegrown talent.
Yeah.
And sometimes they forget that outside experiences can only enhance this community. So, for example, I've said this often, is, I worked in the city of Worcester, it was 200,000 population, and I worked in small communities, right? So I was the town manager in Upton for 8,000 population. And then, this is the sweet spot, 65,000 here. And then having served in the National Guard, like you, I take all those different experiences and I think about what worked, what didn't work, how to navigate policies, the politics, right? How to work with people, because every place you go, it's different, right? And so hopefully you can, as you said, continue to progress over time, and you learn so much and you grew, I think is the word you used. Mm-hmm. And so we are, as administrators, better for it, and we bring all those experiences here to the town of Plymouth. So I appreciate you saying that, because it's really important for folks to know that, you've seen it all. You've seen a lot.
I've
so
seen a
hopefully, you can help us, improve the work that we're doing over at the library.
Absolutely.
But, another thing that you had mentioned, taking on the Foxborough position in the new library. When you said that, I was thinking about a very short experience I had out in Western Mass. And I don't know if you've been out to the Berkshires areas. They have the smallest libraries, but these libraries were built probably about 125 years ago, and they are beautiful. Absolutely magnificent libraries. And there's not a lot of money out there, so they're always thinking about ways to raise enough funds in order to keep these intact. But if you ever have the chance, go out there, because the small libraries, but really, really magnificent.
Thank you.
The other thing you mentioned is really focusing on community. And when I was in Upton, one of the things that I had to experience is the day I started, they had shared a story. They spent over 20 years trying to construct a new library in Upton. And so I was kind of jumping in the middle of that. And then at the same time, I had visited the senior center, which was really in deplorable condition. So I came back to the select board and I said, what we need to do? We need to join forces with the senior center and with the library and create what they now call as a community center. And we ended up getting it passed. It was a debt exclusion. And today, from all accounts, I still talk to the folks back in Upton. This community center, which on the left side of the building starts with the children's library, on the far right side of the building ends with the community room in the senior center. So it really spans all generations, which is why they call it a community center. And when I think about the Plymouth Library, that's what I think about.
Yeah.
And again, first impressions of the Plymouth Library.
Excuse me. I do think you hit the nail on the head, and you made some excellent points when it comes to the community center. What I see at the library is how vibrant and excited patrons are to come in. So I'll give you an example. Just today, we had a whale program at the library, and I was going downstairs, and the library was hopping.
Really?
And people just having a good time. Kids are laughing, and that's what libraries are for. I know there was the way of thinking libraries are very quiet. Well, libraries have definitely evolved over time. We do have areas in the Plymouth Public Library where you can have a quiet study, but then we also have places where you can enjoy yourself and have a good time. So what I see at the Plymouth Public Library is so much opportunity to grow. And I'll give you a quick example of when I was in Tennessee, and I was very naive at the time. When I went there, and we had 28 internet terminals, and they were always full, and there were waiting lists. And I was like, I couldn't believe that. And I was like, why is there so many? Well, there was a good portion of the county that did not have internet because they lived in rural areas, and really hit me. And I'm like, they're coming here because they need the library, they need us.
Right.
So what I want to do is I want to reciprocate. I want to go out and bring the library out to them in any way I can. And I see that here in Plymouth, that we're constantly busy when it comes to programs, the dynamite staff. You know, we have terrific leadership in the town too, which I appreciate, and you know this, and not every town has that.
Right,
you know,
absolutely.
There's a lot of controversy in various towns. We don't have that here in Plymouth, and certainly not at the library. So the library as a community center, I really want to turn it into the community. And I do have some ideas down the line. You could call them maybe pie in the sky, but I really think it can become a reality, you know, to really enhance the library. So other libraries and other municipalities will be jealous of us, like they already are with our literacy center,
Sure.
which is fantastic.
Well, and I mean, you touched on so many things, and you know, I want to cover them all because I want to get back to part of your vision. We have 104 square miles, right? And we've talked with the police department and fire police department, who's starting to open substations throughout the town because of the area to cover. But you just mentioned so before we get to that, I want to go back to the adult literacy program. It just had a graduation. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. I had been told that it's an amazing event, and it did live up to the hype. You know, we had 19 graduates last Monday evening, and Kristen Enos, who is our program director there, like I said there, she is a rock star. I mean, she is so great and such a wonderful leader. And the teachers, they are so enthusiastic and supportive of the students that you could not have a smile on your face seeing the graduates, seeing their families there that have shown support, their children, their parents. It was a wonderful thing. You know, it's a great way that we are connecting and helping the community. And not every library has that.
They don't.
Goodness no.
Absolutely not. And that gets back to the community center concept. And you know, just to share, Silvio Janea, our assistant town manager, attended the graduation, and Deb Iaquinta, one of our select board members, attended the graduation. Silvio came back the next morning and said, I think we need to make it mandatory that every one of our department heads attend a literacy graduation. He said it's that moving. He was really moved by everything that took place. And I had a chance to attend the literacy graduation a couple of years ago. And it's just amazing because you don't typically think of that type of work coming out of a library, right? So to me, you know, maybe we start changing the language that we use, and we no longer call it the public library. We call it the public community center because, you know, you talk about the adult literacy, but you have other programs that are beyond books, right? So you have the Recovery Corner, and then the Food Bank. Talk a little bit about those.
Sure, and I want to give the credit to the Recovery Corner for our Assistant Director, Maureen Coleman.
Okay.
I want to thank her personally for her patience at all the questions I've been asking, and she's been very patient with me, and she's been excellent. She was one of the masterminds behind the Recovery Corner. And I had seen and heard about recovery corners in other libraries, but to witness and see it at a library that now I'm a director at, and the resources available. And now other libraries want to mirror what we have here. That's great.
That's right.
And I know it's been nationally recognized, which again, that's excellent. And our literacy program has been recognized nationally. It's things like that. We do have also an area like a food bank, which we have, and then as well as hygiene products there. We have toothpaste, toothbrush, everything. And it's constantly being filled because the community is coming out there and grabbing food or grabbing a toothbrush or going to our recovery corner, get some information on various groups and organizations that can maybe help them or maybe help a family member, you know.
Well, and that's what Commissioner Brady is trying to achieve, right? So I know that she has regular staff meetings every Monday with all the division heads, and her mantra is like, we have to reach out to the community, we have to engage other like organizations, create community partnerships, mobilize those partnerships so that we can have an added benefit back to our residents. Just for this now, but we didn't have a Health and Human Services department 3 years ago. Now we do, and that's really kind of the foundation. The pillars of their work is really focused on community. And so, again, I know the library has been doing a lot of this work. When I came here in 22, the board really had said to me, we want change, and they had tasked me, right out of the gate. Look for weaknesses, look for areas that we can make change. And so we've actually changed the language that, we don't call it change, we call it improvements, right? So, anywhere we can, we want to continue to make improvements because at the end of the day, we want the residents to really enjoy being here. This is a great place to raise a family, to work, to recreate. I mean, it really has everything. And so the folks that I think who were born and raised here, I think they recognize that. But, coming from Worcester, like, I really know what it means, because we don't have the amenities in Worcester that they have here in Plymouth. So it's an extraordinary community. But I want to get back to your vision.
Sure.
So we talked about 104 square miles.
Yes.
A lot of area to cover.
Absolutely.
We have a main library on South Street. We have a branch library down in Manamint, right? What do you have for ideas that, getting back to your goals of reaching the community?
Well, like you said, Plymouth there's a giant footprint here. I couldn't believe how large Plymouth was. And you're right, we have two libraries. We have our main library and then we have our branch library in Manamint, which we do have our community coming to congregate there. But there are other ways that the library can reach out to all parts of the community. I have seen in other libraries, whether it be down in Tennessee, which, by the way, they are about to have the grand opening for a bookmobile.
Okay.
And that's something that I would like to bring to Plymouth. The idea down there, again, I was the director of a county of 138,000 population, huge footprint.
Right.
It was also in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, all the way up to Knox County. And we had one library. And I remember a patron coming in and complaining that it took 45 minutes, and it's legit 45 minutes to get to the library.
Wow.
It's like, we got to get the library out to all them. Now, how can we do that? How do we bring the library to them? The answer is a bookmobile. And I know we could do that here in Plymouth. We have a bookmobile. We can reach every part of Plymouth and also be involved in events, the parade. I would love to have a bookmobile in a parade.
Sure. Great idea.
At the ball field, at the park, at various grand openings, maybe working in conjunction with the chamber. Showing that the library is going out to them and showing in our services that we can provide. We'd have actually a mini library in the bookmobile. And then we'd also have information and handouts to give to our community of what programs and what services we have. I think it's ideal. I think it's a no-brainer to have that. And then there is no excuse on my part because, I'm coming up with this idea. I want it to go well. We have a bookmobile. We can reach every part of Plymouth at that point. You know.
Yeah, that's a great idea, and I would encourage you to speak directly to Commissioner Brady. Her and I had a conversation a few weeks back about an earmark that Senator Fernandez is going to deliver for $25,000 to the Health and Human Services Department, and a lot of that was focused around transportation and bringing services out to the community. So there may be some alignment with your vision and Senator Fernandez's earmark. So maybe we can make that vision come to reality sooner rather than later. But when you bring up the challenges that you had in Tennessee, we have those same challenges here in Plymouth. And I often have said, even when I was the assistant town manager going back 10 years ago, when I left for 5 years, folks would ask me about my experience in Plymouth, and I would say the challenge that Plymouth faces is that it's so large. It has an urban core, right? So the downtown North Plymouth area, very urban, and then it has suburban attributes, right? So you think of Manamet and Chiltonville, but it has rural needs as well, right? So, when we think about, you and I, go to bed every night, we're thinking about, geez, how do we deliver such a diverse array of services to a diverse community? And so whether it's urban, suburban, or rural, we have to think very differently. When I worked for the city of Worcester, it was all urban issues, right? 200,000 people, closely packed, with dealing with urban issues. So, to a certain degree, delivering services in those types of communities is a lot easier than here in Plymouth. So those are the things that we have to think about here in this town that pose these significant challenges. So you talked about the bookmobile. We've talked about some of the other things that are happening in town. Or at the library. We do know there's something under construction currently right outside the parking lot, very much focused on community.
Absolutely.
And so this is the Ed Santos Community Garden. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yes. It's going on as we speak, the construction. It's right outside the library. It's going to be a wonderful memorial in memory of Mr. Santos. I never met the gentleman, but I've heard nothing but amazing things, how much that he brought to the community. So it seemed obvious to have the library involved with that because the library screams community. It's going to be a wonderful and beautiful memorial. And everyone that's been involved and is currently involved have been all on board. We're all communicating together, making sure that it's fantastic, Because the library at this time of the year, it's a busy season. Summer reading programs kicked in. So
sure, good point.
The parking lot is constantly full. So we've been communicating to make sure if there's concrete being ripped up or bricks being laid down, it's times where it's not our busy time, because they see, the library, they don't want the library to at all look shut down or turn away anyone.
Yeah, right.
So we've been working together. It's going to look amazing at the library. It's actually right outside my office window when I look down, so I get to see it.
Keep an eye on it.
Keep an eye on it, yeah. See, I'm looking forward to the finished product.
Right.
They're currently working on it, and it screams community. It screams those who have volunteered for the town of Plymouth, and it should be recognized at some place that symbolizes the community, and the library is a no-brainer for that.
And I think that was Michael Gallerani's vision when he came up with this idea. Michael Gallerani has really taken the lead on this idea of building a Ed Santos Community Garden. I think this is the third year running that they've had the Ed Santos Community Service Award. And at this garden, they will list all of the recipients over the last 3 years and years to come. And when you look at that space, especially up at the library, to me, this is going to be a place where someone can go inside, grab a book, come sit outside on the patio, read a book, and really enjoy the outdoor weather. So, we appreciate Michael Gallerani for taking the lead on this, getting the funding. This didn't come at any cost to the taxpayer. So I think, once we cut the ribbon on this, we'll bring Michael in and we'll have that conversation.
Absolutely.
What is the expected opening of the garden?
So we're looking at the end of the summer. Right now, the construction part's going on. They were hopeful that it would be done by the end of July, but as with everything, I know there's been a lot of delays when it comes to materials being delivered.
Right.
So now they're looking at sometime in August, maybe shoot for mid to late August for that. So, but again, Michael's been keeping me up to date with everything.
Sure.
We've been working together because we want this to be such a wonderful addition, not only to the library, but for the town of Plymouth.
Yeah, no, right, and we're looking forward to it. I know there's a lot of many meetings to design this, so here we are. As we approach a few minutes left, just very quickly, any budgetary concerns? A lot of things happening at the federal level regarding budget. Anything that you are concerned as the library director?
Well, I first want to say, as far as the local, local leadership, I do want to thank you. I'm seeing libraries around the surrounding area of Plymouth that are having difficulty where hours are being cut. But here in Plymouth, when it comes to municipal, money and funds, that's been there. So I do want to say thank you for that, because not every town is having that right now. On a national level, with a lot of things, there's a lot of uncertainty going on. Libraries in Massachusetts receive funds from the state agency here in Massachusetts, is known as the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. And they receive money from a federal agency called the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the IMLS. Well, right now, there's some restructuring going on with the IMLS. So there is some uncertainty as far as funds going to the NBLC and then to the different libraries.
Right.
So we're all kind of just waiting to see what the next shoe is going to drop. But I can say here in Plymouth, we have a healthy budget. Again, thank you for that. We're not cutting. There's some databases from the NBLC that will be gone, but our services, we're not getting rid of any of them. If anything, we're going to start growing them and bringing more to Plymouth.
Yeah, and that's actually a great segue to end this show, because when we talk about services, you have a really unique opportunity, because every Monday when you're sitting with your colleagues, you get the rec director sitting in the room, you get the veterans agent sitting in the room, the public health director sitting in the room, and the CAL director sitting in the room. And there's so much synergy with the work that you do. I could envision, hours for the veterans agent working up at the library, or working with the rec director and having an ice skating rink in the winter on your front lawn. It's very flat, right? So those are the things that people are really excited about, you coming here and having the ability to lead this into the next, into the future. So we really appreciate, you taking the job and taking the challenge.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, and for the residents of Plymouth, look out, because we're going to come up with some really exciting new services to bring to our community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we appreciate everybody coming and watching this show today. Manny, thank you again for being here. Anything you want to learn more about regarding library services or anything else that's going on in town, as always, I encourage you to go to the town website at www.plymouth-ma.gov. There you'll find everything that you need. And if you can't find it there, certainly give us a call. It's 508-747-1620. So again, until next time, I am your host and town manager, Derek Brindisi. Thank you.